Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanneman here. Thanks for joining me today. This is this week's security news update. In the privacy and security alert section, TeamViewer one more time got hacked. They got hacked about a year or two ago. They're really not releasing any information at all about it other than saying, not to worry, not to worry. Well, how many times have we heard companies go off and say, don't worry, and then come back and say, yeah, you ought to worry. So we'll see where this one goes. But if you are a TeamViewer user, then you need to really get on top of this and try to understand how bad it is. Next, this is kind of an interesting attack. Polyfill.io used to be a content delivery platform that developers use to help them with visual graphic software on their websites. Well, they shut down. A Chinese company bought it, and now they're delivering malware. Apparently 100,000 sites that use it, so it's significant. It's not, it's not Google, but it's significant. And, if you're using Polyfill.io, now will be a really great time to stop. Next, Nvidia and ARM warn of new flaws in their graphic chip support software. Now, note, these are not bugs in the chips themselves. These are bugs in the drivers. So relatively speaking, they're easy to fix. You just need to make sure that if you're using Nvidia or ARM graphics chips, that you do download and install on all platforms the updated drivers. Next, the SEC issued new guidance on the cybersecurity disclosure requirements. You may remember public companies as of the end of last year are required to disclose material breaches within 4 days of deciding their material. Is the guidance they give out any more clear? Yeah, it does. It does clarify a couple of questions, but it's really around the margins. Still, if you are a publicly traded company and you need to disclose this, then more information is better than less information. Next, in important issues, Hubspot is, again, one more time, these guys are being really vague and opaque. They say bad actors targeted customers. Now, targeted means you didn't succeed, right? But they're obviously worried about their revenue. They're a big company, I think like $30 billion or something. So they're worried about their revenue. They don't want that. They don't want their reputation tarnished. But they said they targeted a limited number of companies. They don't say how many. And they also say that they, HubSpot, are going to go off and are contacting customers to revoke unauthorized access. That doesn't sound like somebody who tried. That sounds like somebody who succeeded. So we shall see, what comes out in the next week or two as we learn more about this. But it sounds like they did get a hack, however that worked, and they're now going back and trying to do damage control. Next, there is a new attack going on using Microsoft Management Console files. These files is the MSC file. It exploits a bug that was reported to Microsoft back in 2018. This kind of goes along with the testimony before Congress that Microsoft got beat up for of just not patching stuff. There's just too many bugs, and they're just having a hard time keeping up with it. So they decided, for whatever reason, not to patch this. Hackers have figured out that they can exploit it and take over computers, and maybe now that it's become public and Microsoft's going to be even more embarrassed, and they're trying to do their best to rehabilitate their brand. Maybe they'll patch this bug, but and so there is no mitigation for this at this point. Next, under legislative and legal, Apple warns that the App Store is in breach of the EU rules. They've been notified by the EU that they are. This is the first tech company to be charged under the new Digital Markets Act, which requires a level playing field. Apple made what I would call a half-hearted effort. Apple's in, and all the tech companies are, right? They're just trying to protect their revenue. They don't like what the Europeans are doing. They're going to go off and try to do as little as they can to comply with the law and hope they can get away with it. They kind of got caught at this point. The developers are calling what Apple did do to try to comply with the rules abusive, extortion, ludicrously punitive. I got to agree with the developers. What Apple did was not really terribly developer friendly. It was clearly designed to have the appearance of complying with the Digital Markets Act, when in fact they really weren't. So we'll see. I mean, this is going to go on for years, of course, but we'll see where it goes. Next, Meta Meta is trying to wiggle out of a false ad claim, and they're being sued by Australian billionaire Andrew Forrest. He's suing them because hackers used deepfakes to make it appear that he was hawking phony crypto schemes, which he was not doing. And they said Section 230, we're not responsible for content generated by other people, which in theory is true. But then he's saying that they need to operate in a commercially reasonable manner, which is a different law. And just as I'll entertain that. We'll see how that comes out. But this is not one of those cases where they got kicked out of court. The case got kicked out of court right away. So this is going on for a while. Next, the U.S. and Julian Assange come to terms. He pleaded guilty to one felony count, and he was sentenced to time served. Now, in reality, he was sentenced to about 2 times or 2.5 times time served in terms of what he would have gotten if he just pleaded guilty in the beginning. But they were talking about the death penalty and stuff like that. So he wasn't kind of up for that. He holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for 7 years. They eventually kicked him out for totally misbehaving. He probably could have stayed there forever if he would have just behaved like an adult. And then he was held in a British prison without possibility of bail for another 5 years. It's about 12 years. Likely he would have gotten about 5 years if he just pleaded guilty in the beginning. He claimed freedom of the press to be able to leak classified documents. The U.S. government didn't kind of agree with that. But in any case, he is off back in Australia. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are watching him. And he also agreed to destroy any classified documents that he still has in his possession that haven't been published. Next, in the education section, AI releases information about what they're calling skeleton key, which is the key to what I call AI badness. AI keeps trying to put guardrails around people doing things that they shouldn't do with AI. That's really, really hard. Mark Russinovich, who is the chief technical officer of Azure, spoke last month about this particular problem. I'm not sure there's a fix. I'm sure we'll put a bunch of Band-Aids on it. It doesn't seem to affect all of the large language models because it's basically a way of finessing questions so that the large language model gives up stuff which it really shouldn't. In the breaches department, there were reports early in the week that the Federal Reserve was hacked, that the hackers stole 30 terabytes worth of data, that they were negotiating with the hackers and offered them $50,000. They wanted millions of dollars. They claimed that they were offended by this measly $50,000 offer, assuming it even existed. It turns out that the data is actually not from the Fed at all. It's from a bank called Evolve Bank and Trust. And in media outlets, this happens, you're right, in the frenzy to be first and publish stuff. Being first and being right are two separate things, and sometimes the media doesn't get the part about being right correct. So it turns out this was a bank. They had been penalized in the recent past for unsafe and unsound banking practices. Now I'm guessing the Fed's going to add to that unsafe and unsound cybersecurity practices since they got hacked. But we shall see. We're hearing more about more victims of the Snowflake breach, Snowflake being a hosting provider that hosts data for people that really need a high-performance computing. So this is Neiman Marcus. It's a relatively small batch of people, about 65,000. And Mandiant, the big forensics firm that's now part of Google, says that all the people they've seen that were victims were not using a multi-factor authentication. I am blown away. And these are big companies, right? Neiman Marcus, and they've suffered breaches in the past. Santander Bank, big mega bank, Ticketmaster. And these are all companies that should know better and should have implemented multi-factor authentication, which apparently they didn't. So whatever. Next, one of the major auto dealer cloud providers, CDK, had a cyber breach of some sort. Again, one more time, they're really not releasing much information about what happened other than it didn't work. Last week, they went down. They came back up. They went down again. Now they're saying, and this is, by the time you listen to this, is going to be past the end of the month, but they say For those of you that need to do June month-end close, you should not assume that our software is working, and you should come up with a different way to do your financials. Fundamentally, this is true for all cloud providers I'm aware of. Cloud providers are not responsible for your data. That's up to you. It's very clear in their shared responsibility models. Infrastructure and stuff like that, that's their responsibility. But data, that's your responsibility. So if you don't have a good plan for what you're going to do, if a key provider goes away without any notice, and they'll come back at some point in time, and pieces of it are already back. But, if it's important to you and you don't have a backup that you control, you don't have an alternate plan, then, that's a problem. If you need help with that, let us know. Next, we're getting an update on the Los Angeles school district attack. Remember, the school district has something less than 500,000 students, but they lost data on 24 million students, which says that basically they never met a piece of data that they didn't want to keep. That's come back to bite them in the rear end. And, we'll see from a lawsuit standpoint. It's hard to sue the government, but we shall see. Of course, the school district is blaming their vendor. It's not our fault. The vendor says, well, we didn't actually have a breach. So that one's going to be interesting in terms of how this manages to go through the court. The challenge here is that the data that was stolen was on school kids, right? Could be as young as kindergarten, right? And there's a lot of really sensitive data. This is not like, your email address or something. This is, your parents' name, your address, your parents' address, your country of citizenship, all kinds of stuff like that. And then for another 50,000 teachers, same problem. So I'm guessing this is going to be a significant lawsuit, and we shall see how that works. I'm not sure what the state laws are in California in terms of suing a government-related entity, but I'm sure we will find out. Next, the Russian-linked influence group called Copycat, Copycop, is getting very active. They were doing some what do you call it? Manipulated, that's a good word, manipulated political content for a variety of different races in Europe. Now they are going after the U.S. presidential election. This is only going to eat up between now and November. But what they've done is they've figured out how to use AI to create manipulated content at scale, registering hundreds of websites and taking the content and slightly, tinkering with it. But basically, they're scraping content from other websites, mostly right-wing websites, and then tinkering with it and republishing it on these various websites that they've bought. They seem to be pro-Trump in terms of how they're spinning the content. I don't know why that is, but my speculation is, one of the reasons why these guys do what they do is to create discontent. They're probably pretty good at that. The other is to go off and get people that they think are going to be easier for them to deal with or manipulate into power, so that they can go off and continue their scheme. Obviously, they think, I don't know if it's true, they think that Donald Trump is easier to manipulate, and so they want him in power. Or maybe they think that he's just going to ignore them, and that works to their favor. Next, the House canceled the vote just literally minutes before it was supposed to happen. This is the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House. They were supposed to vote on the American Privacy Rights Act. I think they thought they had an agreement in terms of content. Turns out, as they're tinkering with this content kind of in real time, they are discovering that they really didn't have the votes necessary. And it doesn't mean they couldn't come back in a week or 2 weeks, but we are getting close to the elections. And the fact that this one committee votes on it doesn't mean it's going to, make it all the way through the House and the Senate and all the way to the White House and pass all those wickets. But, it's one more attempt. There have been a lot of attempts at passing a federal privacy law that would eliminate all those pesky state laws that have, well, one reason why they don't like it is because they have inconsistent requirements, and that's valid. The other is that they likely would be tougher than a federal law. That'd be my guess. But until the law is actually baked and we can compare it side by side with the state laws, we won't know that. But for example, in California and several other states, victims of breaches can sue. What business would like is, only if God came down and generated a new set of tablets can they be sued for bad cybersecurity and privacy practices. Somewhere in the middle there is going to be, some kind of compromise. I don't know where it's going to be, but the states that have, stronger notification laws, stronger opt-out laws, stronger ability to seek recourse laws, all of those states are going to be against a federal bill which doesn't give them any of those protections. They don't want to go off and take away things that their residents already have. So we shall see where that goes. I am, generally speaking, pessimistic about whether that's going to be successful this year. And then, of course, obviously, the party that's in power, is concerned about giving, the other party anything in favor. So, that also goes against the possibility of getting things passed. In the news bites, New York City's Gotham restaurant, upscale restaurant, apparently very popular, was forced to close. Hopefully they will reopen. What happened is they got hit with a business email compromise attack. They thought their payroll provider changed their bank account. That's what the email said. So they sent the money to, some hacker somewhere. I don't know where they were. But they sent the money to some hackers, and so they didn't have money to make payroll, so they closed. And next, I was talking about this before, the supposed attack against the Fed, where they stole 30 gigabytes of data, which didn't turn out to be the Fed, but nonetheless, the hacker said, if you don't pay us off, we're going to release your data. They did not get paid off, and they did release the data. It's a real challenge, right? If you're a company, any company, and you get hacked and they steal data, right? So ransomware, kind of the old version of ransomware, they just encrypted it, they didn't steal it. Now they figured out they have a lot more leverage if they steal the data, and if you won't negotiate, then they'll either publish it to punish you or they'll try to sell it or whatever. So what do you do? And there's no easy answer there, unfortunately. It looks like Amazon is joining the Silicon Valley crowd. They are going to release a super powerful AI agent, large language model, but they're going to charge a monthly recurring charge for it. So, I guess that's sort of consistent with what Amazon does today in the Amazon Web Services model, right? You use compute resources and you pay for it. This is a little different. This is a subscription model, but still, it's monthly recurring revenue. They think they could make $1 billion a month in revenue and then steer about $10 billion a month in, and maybe that's annually, $10 billion in extra sales revenue. So, that's probably as important to them as monthly recurring revenue. Next, the Arkansas governor claiming that Temu, which is a Chinese shopping app kind of competitor to Amazon, I guess, is spyware, and they're suing. We shall see where this goes. I don't think Temu is spyware per se. I do think they're collecting data, no different than Amazon collects or Facebook or anybody else, but it's our adversary. So that which is okay for an American-based company to do is not okay for a foreign-based company to do. And so they're mad at Temu for doing that. But I don't think Temu is particularly doing anything. We'll find out, assuming this thing comes to trial. I don't know that they're doing anything which is any worse than what the other guys are doing, but I could be wrong about that because we don't have the details yet. And last, the Polish parliament has stripped an opposition official of immunity after he was accused of using spyware to spy on politicians and media folks, got caught at it and lost the election. And now they're seeking revenge. The party that he was spying on, the political party that he was spying on is now in power. And they're going to go off and try to nail him to the cross for what he did. Now, personally, I think that's okay. I don't think that politicians should use, spyware to go spy on their opponents just because they can. So that's all I have for today. Until next time, stay safe. If we can help you with anything, please let us know. And in particular, this whole thing about disaster recovery business continuity, which the car dealers are learning about the hard way. If you need help with that, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to assist you. Thanks.